Welcome to the Lean Podcast, where empowerment and alignment come together. I'm your host, Mahogany, here to guide you through inspiring stories of resilience, overcoming grief, health challenges, career struggles, and more. Together, we'll lean into strength, embrace growth, and discover the power of sharing experiences. Before we dive into today's episode, I'd like to start with a prayer. If you feel comfortable, I invite you to join me. Dear God, thank you for this space to uplift, inspire, and empower. Bless the woman sharing her story today and those who are listening. May this podcast be a source of hope, healing, and alignment with your purpose for our lives. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, y'all. So today we have with us Miss Tay. Tay, welcome. We are so happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Y'all, Tay is a mother. She is an entrepreneur. She is a micro influencer who's killing it on social media, TikTok to be exact. So make sure you connect with her in the description notes where you can find how to connect with her. Thank you so much, Tay, for being here. It means so much to me.
Absolutely.
So today, Tay is going to be sharing her story with us about addiction and sexual abuse. This is a place that a lot of us women, we find ourselves in throughout life. And sometimes they can feel lonely, like you're the only one who's in it and like no one could understand. But today, Tay is breaking the silence and letting us all know that you can overcome those types of situations and just really blossom the way she has in life. So Tay, before we get into it, share with us a little bit about who you are. We know you're a mom and an entrepreneur and all those great things, but we want to hear it from you.
I am a mother. I am a wife. Me and my partner have been together for 14 years, and we have 4 beautiful children. We work in the mental health industry. We run currently 4 care homes for adults with developmental disabilities in the state of Oregon. We have branched out also in Florida, but right now our main thing is Oregon. And that pretty much consumes our whole life, is being a director of a care program. On the side is where social media kind of comes in, which has always been an outlet for me from the very jump. I would say like my Facebook's from 2006. So it's always been something that I've been on. I love everything that has to do with connecting with people virtually, whether it's just like sharing resources, stories, just groups, anything that I can do to kind of like get out of my own little space and bubble and just kind of venture out virtually. I think it's just the most amazing thing, and it can be a great thing. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Oh, wow. See, I didn't even know about the care homes. That's amazing. I love
Yes.
that so much. I was just at a care home today and I was shocked to see that it was a house. I thought I was going to pull up to a facility because I work with
Yeah.
adult protective services. So I
Yes.
investigate certain places, and I pulled up to a house and I'm like, am I at the right place? And then I get out and it looks just like a facility, just micro. And I'm like, this is so cool. And the lady's like, yeah, let me tell you about it. But anyway, that's besides the point. I was just like, wow, that's really amazing that y'all are doing that. It's so
Yeah.
needed.
Yeah.
It's so needed.
They're all homes, and they try to really stay away from the facility vibe because they want people to feel like at home. But it's a great thing what you're doing as well. It's something that's not talked about a lot. So I had no idea that you worked in that field either. So it's weird that we're connecting today and we're both kind of on both sides of that fence. So that's really dope.
It is. Wow. Okay, so we hear Tay, and she is all these amazing things. However, we do know that that comes with a story. Sometimes people see the glamour and they see what you're doing, and it's like, oh, wow, I wish I could be that person. But they don't understand what we've had to go through to get to that point.
Right.
So share with us some of the lows that you've had to endure to become this phenomenal woman that you are today.
I would say there's been, homelessness, addiction, which all stems from some root issue, right? And I think for me, the biggest root issue was the child abuse, sex abuse. And it was something that was never really like discussed. We were supposed to have grown up in like what people would consider like a suburban neighborhood. And so people just kind of keep up with the Joneses there. And, what goes on behind closed doors, nobody knows anything about. And so we had this like life that was portrayed as glamorous, or maybe like Richie Rich, Leave It to Beaver kind of, situation. But what was going on behind those doors was far from suburban lifestyle. I mean, abuse can take place in any home, but it's almost like you open the door and you're in a different universe. You know what I'm saying? Like, it looks all nice and everything's clean and put together. The mom has OCD, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just beautiful. But what's really going on in those homes is very dark, is very dirty. It's very shameful. And, I had the unfortunate circumstance that it was somebody that my mom married. It was a sibling's parent. And still to this day, that sibling has no idea. Like, we've kept it completely closed, even though there's public records. Like, that person's never like known about any of this stuff. And so it was really hard to endure like the sex abuse from ages, I think my earliest memory of it was 5 until about 12. And that's just as far back as my brain remembers. So obviously, growing up with siblings, one of us is getting this abuse, but the other ones are not. And so that kind of puts you in a different headspace of like, what do I do differently? Or what is the cause of this? You know what I'm saying? It's more so like you become the black sheep of the family because you're enduring these things that you know that they are not. And so it kind of makes you like a very angry child, like a very rebellious, like, I want out of here. I can't stand this house. Like, you just want to run as far as you can. And I spent my entire childhood from 5 until 18 anywhere but home. You know what I'm saying? If it was home, it was abuse or neglect. And so I had a lot of little, families that would adopt me here and there, and now I really couch surfed until I was old enough to look into emancipation, and then eventually got my own apartment. When I finally decided, like, I need to tell somebody, I told my mom, and her first instinct or response was like, you're going to ruin your sibling's life. Like, you grew up without a father. Like, how do you think that person's going to feel if you take their father away from them? So I was like, this is not a safe place. This is not where I need to be. This is not where I should stay. Clearly there's other priorities here, and this abuse is being completely like brushed under the rug. And that made me feel like, did you know this was happening? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, did I even need to tell you? Like, was there signs? And it's very almost like narcissistic or gaslighting, because you're being told in lesser words, whether it's on TV shows and you're watching episodes where kids are, confiding in their parents and their parents are taking action. So you're like, my parents going to take action. They're 100% going to protect me. And it was the complete opposite. And I was just like, boom, hit like a truck. So I really thought like the abuse was the worst part, but that was like the worst part. At that point, I really left and never came back. I would see my mom like every few months. I was not going to school. I was enrolled, but I didn't go. I probably ended my junior year with a 0.68 GPA. I had to drop out and get a GED because I had 0 credits. And all of that is stuff that people don't see when they're like, oh, the TikTok and, all this stuff, or when I talk about income. And so it's very like interesting to be like, this is what motivated that. Like, this is what motivated, like, I have to be successful. There's no other options because I don't want my life to ever be in control by somebody else. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because sometimes it could just seem like you should be supported, but that's not always the case.
Yes, exactly.
How old were you when you told your mom what was going on? You were 12?
Yes.
And that's when you like started to
Yep.
distance yourself and leave the house?
Yes, 100%. There was like moments in time where I would rebel because I actually wanted her to ask. And so I would do stuff to like provoke her to ask me, like, is there something going on? And it would result in like a punishment. Like my door would get taken away for months. I'm like, you're taking my door away in a house with a predator. I'm just not going to come home. She would call the police anytime that I ran away, have me arrested, brought back. I would do it again. And this was just like a very tumultuous relationship between me and my mom, and that led to like a lot of resentment. She was the only parent that I had alive, and the resentment just built and built and built to this day. And it's taken like a lot to even get to a point where I can even answer like phone calls and stuff, because I just still have like that knot in my stomach of like, you dropped the ball. Like I just,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like us as moms, we could never imagine putting our child through that, or in our child enduring that, and then us taking zero action is just incomprehensible. It cannot happen. So I think like I wanted to be I wanted to show her how to do this the right way, but that also led to me maturing a little bit too fast. And then, I got pregnant pretty young, 19. Because I just wanted to show her like it's not that hard to protect these children. It wasn't going to be that hard for you to protect me. Like I'm going to show you how to do this the right way. And I couldn't have been more thrown for a loop on how hard it was to actually keep our children safe and to be a mom. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. It's not a cakewalk being
No.
a mom at all.
Yes.
What's your birth order with your siblings? And are you the only girl?
I am the middle child. I am not the only girl. I have an older sister. And then my two older brothers, one is deceased, one lives in Oklahoma, and then my youngest brother lives in Arizona. But we all grew up in really separate households. So, like, we either had the same mom or the same dad, or, you know what I'm saying? It was very like Brady Bunch. So, there's a lot of siblings, but I really only grew up in a household with my oldest sister and my youngest brother. Everybody else was like come and go.
Mm-hmm. Summers, vacations, stuff
Yes.
like that.
Yes.
Okay, I know you said that your earliest memory was at 5 years old, with your stepfather.
Yeah.
As a child that young going through something like that, how were you coping at that age? Or was it just a part of your normal?
It was 100% a part of the normal. I think I vividly remember the very first one that I remember. And I remember like I need to plan a slumber party with my best friend and tell her, or I'm going to ask her if this happens everywhere. And that's exactly what I did. And I just said, I think he thinks I'm my mom sometimes. And she was like, what? And mind you, we're like 5 or 6. And she was just like, my dad doesn't do that. And it confirmed my worst fear, which was that was not supposed to happen. I'm in danger. And it was so crazy because I never spoke about it again. And for, years, I would just, when it was time for me to go home at friends' homes, I would just freeze. Like, oh God, it's the dreadful time of day where they're shutting their family down to go to bed. They have school tomorrow and I have to go back to that place. And I just am going to do everything to avoid it. And I would. But yeah, it was very much normal, but I knew there was something not normal about it because my best friend could not relate at all.
Mm-hmm. Your earliest memory of it, do you feel like after you found out it wasn't true, that's when it started to affect you, or did it affect you before?
I think it affected me before because um, it had never happened yet from what I recalled. And that really confused me because it made me uncomfortable. It made me really nauseous. And I just remember thinking, like, I did not like anything about that. And I never want to go through that again. But he told me that he'll never do it again. So maybe he won't. And I remember keeping tally like that young. I was like, okay, this happened one time. It's never going to happen again. It's fine. And then the second time, and I started keeping a tally. And after so many years, I had lost count and I stopped counting.
Mm.
So I knew something wasn't right, because why was I tallying this one event? I tallied nothing else in my life. Not how many times I brushed my teeth or how many times I comb my hair. It was just this one event that was happening. It was recurring, and I, for some reason, kept track of it until I couldn't anymore.
Mm-hmm. And during times where you weren't being abused, what was your relationship like with your stepfather?
Very like, I mean, he was pretty cold as a person. Very much like a salesman attitude, if that makes sense. Like, he worked in real estate, so kind of makes sense like why the persona was like that. But this was the type of person who did not contribute to the household financially. It was all on my mom. And also did not contribute to like birthday presents, Christmas. So there wasn't much of a relationship outside of the abuse, anyways. But I 100% wanted to be like daddy's little girl. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
for some reason, I saw how terrible he had a relationship with my older sister. And then I saw how he treated my little brother. And for some reason, there was just a different level of like, I sought approval from this person more than my siblings did. And I didn't understand why I did that.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever find out why?
No, I think it was just a matter of like, yes, I was being told that this person was my biological father. And then I found out in the third grade that he wasn't. That was when I stopped seeking approval. But I do remember feeling very much like I'll do anything to make this person proud, until the day that I found out he was not my biological father. And then it was like everything just went upside down, and it was insane.
Mm-hmm. It was like a big boulder hit you. Like, whoa.
Yeah. It made sense. Like, a lot of things clicked for me. And I mean, I think I was probably like 9. And it was actually during winter break, which is so ironic that this starts today. And I was like trying to find printer paper, and I found like a baby book. And when I picked it up, a picture fell out of a man and my mom, and it was not this guy that we lived with. And I just went to my mom and was like, "Did you cheat on dad? Like, who is this?" And she just goes, "You should talk to your father about that." And I went and brought him the photo, and he was like, "This is your real dad." And instantly I'm like, "Is that why you do what you do?" Like, everything was just like, "Wait a minute." And they said it so like, "This is who it is. There's nothing we can do about it. He's dead. Move on."
Mm-hmm.
And it was never spoke about again. And I was just
Mm-hmm.
left to like, what? Like, my brain was just like mush for weeks. And then we went back to school right after winter break. And I just remember like having all this new information I wanted to tell everybody. I didn't tell a soul. I was just still in shock that this person I thought was my dad is doing these things. And now I know he's not my dad, and he's doing these things, which made it for me 100 times worse, because now I owe him no loyalty, is what I thought. Like, I owe him nothing. Why am I saving his name, pretty much?
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you were trying to protect him before you had found out the truth?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Because, I mean, it was like a family unit, and like my best friend was our neighbor, and her parents had went through a divorce, and hearing her mom talk about it all the time in a very negative light was traumatizing. Like, anybody that I knew whose parents were going through a divorce, no one ever spoke about it in a positive light. And it almost was like, I don't want to put anyone in a situation where that could be the outcome, because this doesn't sound very good.
Right. Man, that's a lot to carry as a child, to be
Right.
putting all those connections together as a kid
Right.
and making those hard decisions. Is there a certain space in your house or your car or places where he would abuse you? Were there like a certain spot he'd always go to, or how would he get a hold of you alone?
It was always in the middle of the night when everybody was asleep. It didn't matter if I was in my own room, or if I decided to sleep in my brother's room that day, or it could have been like a situation where I had fallen asleep with my mom and I would have been moved in my sleep and woken up to this. It was always something that I woke up to. But it was, and then it got to the point where, he must have been really comfortable doing this and really bold because my mom was a flight attendant, which means like we would go with her on her trips sometimes if it was going to be like near Disneyland, something like that. And in hotel rooms, there's no privacy. And so then he started doing it like that. And I thought, how is nobody waking up to this? Like, this is a lot going on. Like, I just need one person to wake up. That's all. And I would just be frozen. Like, I just need one person to glance over, and this is all going to stop. It never came. It never stopped. It never stopped until I left.
Wow.
Yeah.
Would you say that he was using like digital or like penetrating you or just like touching you or making you touch him to
It
make
was
it not so obvious, I
it
guess,
was
obvious?
combined, like all of that. It was combined. I would say there was attempted penetration on numerous occasions. I was so young and I was so small. And then, he just, you know, molestation and having me do this or that. And I just don't know how someone is so bold to do that, like in a house with so many siblings and a mother. Like it just, looking back at it, it makes no sense. Like I hear a creak in the night and I'm up checking everybody's rooms. Like I just don't understand the lack of like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. I know it's not easy, even though it's been a long time.
Right.
With your mom, I know you had mentioned addiction.
Yeah.
Did your mom use any types of substances around these phases of your life?
Yeah, so she's an alcoholic, active in her addiction still to this day. We didn't really notice it as much as a child. Alcohol is very like socially acceptable, so it was nothing that ever like stuck out to us until after I had disclosed to her. Then it was just like snowball effect. Like it was full blown alcoholism at that point, and it stuck out, very obviously. My biological father passed away from an overdose from opiates, which
Mm.
I did not know until I was clear into my addiction. So, once I had that data, I was like, okay, I'm getting it from both sides. Like, this was genetically built into me. Like, I have to do something else.
When do you remember your addiction starting?
I was in a car accident in 2013, and I injured my back, which ended up, what's the word? It ended up revealing back issues that I was born with, but it was like a more severe recovery because we didn't know about the back issues that I had until they were affected. And by 2016, I was in full blown like physical dependency on opiates.
How old were you in 26? You said when you got in the accident, 20.
Yeah, I think I had just turned 20. My firstborn was 8 months old. So I think I
Mhm.
had just turned 20. And yeah, that's when it started.
Your dependency on the opioids, was it more so like the trauma you'd gone through, or was it literally the amount of pain you were in, or was it a combination?
It was definitely a combination. At first, I'd never heard of it. Like, I'd never experimented with it like that. I was always somebody that leaned more towards like gardening. Like, opiates was never a thing to me. Same with alcohol. I never was somebody who, played with alcohol, not even socially. So when I had experienced this accident and I was first prescribed, I was out of pain immediately. And all I knew was this is working and I'm going to do what I need to do to not feel like this because I couldn't use my legs some days. And then it got to the point where I found myself trying to request refills sooner than necessary because I was afraid that like I wouldn't have anything to get me through, right? And it was gradual between 2013 and 2016. I didn't even know that I had a physical dependency until 2015.
What did you do when you found out in 2015? Like, whoa, this is not cool. Like, I'm having a problem here.
Yeah, I remember I was pregnant and I had there was no cure for my back. There was no cure. There was nothing anyone was going to be able to do. There's no surgeries. You know, it is what it is. And during the pregnancy, it was getting worse, the back pain, because it causes our body to shift. And it wasn't until the last 30 days or maybe the last 60 days of my pregnancy, I was like, I can't take these anymore. Like, I don't want it to be in my breast milk. Like, I don't want none of that. And so I woke up one day and was like, I'm not taking anything. And I think it was by that night, I was so sick and I was pregnant. And I was like, what have I done? What is this? Like, I don't like this at all. And I knew something was wrong. I knew I had made a big mistake. So I started researching like what to do. And it basically said you're experiencing opiate withdrawal, which is a symptom of addiction, a physical dependency. So I tapered myself down as low as I possibly could so that I wouldn't get sick throughout the day because I still had kids that I had to take care of anyways. I never appeared like I was in an addiction. Nobody ever knew. The only people that knew was anybody that I was buying from, but they never knew I was buying for myself. And at that time, I didn't have a dealer. Like, it was still very much from my doctor, or like if a friend got it, they would just be like, I don't take these. Do you want them? Like, very like lax. And then I gave birth and I broke my tailbone during birth. So the pain of the birth was like beyond. And I didn't understand why I couldn't walk. I didn't understand why I couldn't do anything. And they kept saying, there's nothing wrong. Like, you have to get up. You have to get up. It was a C-section. I couldn't really do that either. And they sent me home with ibuprofen. And I was like, this is not good. Like, I'm actually not okay at all. And I ended up going to a doctor that saw with the C-section, the tailbone issue, and then the prior back issues. They put me on a pain contract, which is a 30-day supply of narcotics. And you come in every 3 months for a UA, and they just keep you rolling over. And we're talking like 220 Percocet a month, which looking back it's disgusting. So then I didn't need to worry anymore. I was on a pain contract. I had somebody watching me. It was coming from a doctor. The guilt, there was no guilt. It was coming from a doctor. Everything about it was legitimate until I started running short throughout the years, running shorter and shorter and shorter. And it wasn't until we moved to Hawaii in 2017 that I realized like something's got to give, because I was flying home to get my prescription and then I would go back to Hawaii and live and come back. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is exhausting. I got clean out there and then we moved back shortly after. And the first thing I did was call somebody that I knew would have them available. And I don't even know why. Like, I don't know if it was just we came back to homelessness. We came back to zero assets. We lost everything going out there. We were literally on somebody's floor sleeping with us and our kids. And I mean, everything hurt mentally, physically, like everything hurt. Like, I needed an escape, and I knew that I was back where I was familiar and it was my stomping ground. So I knew that I wasn't going to end up in a situation like I was in Hawaii where I couldn't get anything. I was going to be just fine as long as I was like where I was familiar. And I went right back into it and didn't even realize like how fast that had happened.
Wow. I really appreciate your transparency on here. I got to tell you. Oh, man. So when you got back home, how did you manage to finally get to a place where you were clean?
I got pregnant with our youngest daughter in November of 2017. I had been trying to wean myself back off from August to November. So when I found out I was pregnant, I instantly was like, oh no, I'm going to find a way. Like, I'm going to get into treatment. Obviously, I got pregnant in November, didn't really know that until about January, like with the weeks. And that was when I had my first positive pregnancy test. Simultaneously, I get a letter in the mail that my doctor, who was prescribing me the Percocet, was being let go. And I panicked because I'm like, why would they be letting her go? She's the only person who listens to me. Something's wrong. And then I found out that it was actually like through the Trump administration that she was being let go because she was over prescribing, and like her DEA number or something like that, like she was over prescribing. And Trump was basically coming in saying, like, we're trying to end the opioid epidemic. And my doctor was impacted by that. Like, they were not following the law. And I was like, I hate this guy. This freaking guy is going to ruin my life. I'm going to be fucked. And I didn't know what to do. I just knew like I was not going to have any more prescriptions that month. Found out I was pregnant, got the letter in the mail. And I called one of my dealers who was a friend. And I said, didn't you used to take Percocet? Like, how did you get off of them? She's like, girl, I go to a clinic. You don't want nothing to do with that. And I said, no, actually, I really do. Like, I need to get off of these like today. And she said, you're the type of person that takes them very responsibly. You literally just take the minimal amount to not get sick. So you're just not somebody that's going to need the type of treatment that I have, because you're not like, I looked like this. Like, I wasn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, there was nothing different about how I approached like daily life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really odd. But then my husband was like, of course she doesn't want you to stop. You're her cash cow. And I was like, well, she's my friend though too. And she knows that I only buy if I'm sick. And I don't understand why she would not want me to go to the clinic with her. Like, it just wasn't registering, right? So we're living in Monmouth, Oregon at the time, very small town, So ultimately, with her not wanting to lose whatever income I was bringing in, that was holding up a lot of like why I wasn't able to stop, because she was so convincing with how not addicted I was, and how this is something I could easily do on my own. If I wean off and do this very carefully, then I will not need the assistance of a doctor. She had me 100% convinced that this was something I could do on my own. We're living in Monmouth at the time, a very small town. And I see a little sign with a ladybug on it, and it says amazing treatment. It doesn't say anything else. I call the number and they're like, what are you withdrawing from? And I said, opiates. And they were like, all we need you to do is be withdrawing for at least 12 hours and we can take you. And they're like, how soon do you want to come in? I was like, now, I'm pregnant. And I was, barely pregnant. And they were like, okay, we'll schedule you out for, how long? It was March 10th, I believe, is my clean date. I went in March 10th. I had been in withdrawal for 24 hours. They put me on a medication that's called Suboxone. And it was basically a fraction of a dose that they would give a user that took, multiple pills a day, or potentially like heroin and things like that. My dose allegedly did not scratch the surface of what they would normally give people, which was fine. I just didn't want to be sick. That's it. Because one, the baby could be at risk, and so on and so forth. It was just going to be a battle. I took that medication that morning at like 9 a.m. And all I knew was I should have done it sooner. I should have never listened to her. I should have done this back in January when I first got that letter. I could have gotten clean years ago, and look how much time I would have saved and money, and look where I would be at. I was so mad that people kept this hush. I had never heard of Suboxone. I had never heard of MAT. I had never heard of it. You hear about methadone, you hear about that with heroin users, but nobody is talking about Suboxone and the benefits of when it's used appropriately with treatment, therapy, counseling, one on ones, and everything else that comes along with it. My life changed in that moment. And it's been an absolute, I've just been on a roll ever since. Like, I will not stop. That day changed my life. I gave birth to her. She was 100% healthy, no issues. I had been clean from March to July at that point. And that's where it's been at.
I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you, Tay.
Thank you.
That's incredible. I know you said like your use wasn't to the point where you're sitting here just slumped over and stuff, because I've never seen you like that, and I had been to your house to see you.
Exactly.
So I'm really glad that you still made it a priority, even though it wasn't destroying your life from
Yes.
the outside.
Yes.
So take us back really quick before we wrap up. What ended up happening with your abuser, or how did you, or if ever, did it ever come to light what he did?
So what I ended up doing when I was pregnant with my daughter, it became a different type of motivation. All I knew was it was one thing for me to have a stepdaughter that I had been in her life since I was 17. And she was ultimately a half of me as well, because she was the first child that I helped raise. It was one thing to put all my energy in protecting that little girl. But when I was pregnant with my first biological daughter, it lit a fire under my ass. All I knew was there was no way I was going to let this man walk around in my face at any event involving my siblings, and I was going to have to deal with him. So I was like, I have to find a way. I was still pregnant. I called an attorney, a personal injury attorney in Salem, Oregon, and I told them the story. Like, and they of course asked me, why now? And I said, because I'm pregnant with a little girl and I cannot imagine this ever happening to her and me not taking on the world to defend her and to keep her safe. And they were like, okay. It took a couple years, but I ended up having to do ultimately like a small claim, like a civil suit towards him. And we had to sign agreements, not anything like an NDA or anything like that. The agreement was that my name is Jane Doe in those documents, and I would never be able to sue again. Also, in order for him to pay out, I had to allow him to say the statement in the paper that stated, me paying her is not accepting blame. Then why else would you? Why else would you want this to go away? And that was like, okay, whatever you need to tell yourself, because the statute of limitations was over. There was no forensics. All of the witnesses that were involved had fallen off miraculously. So our only bet was this one little agreement that we had to write down. And that was my way of getting payback. And it wasn't anything significant. It was 100% principle. It was, now let's see how you approach me when you see me in public. Now let's see how you use my name and things like that. And I have known, to this day, he has baby pictures of me in his house. He has pictures of me from high school on his fridge. I've never spoken to him since, I don't know, like prior to us even moving to Hawaii, because again, he was at anything that involved my sibling, whether it was graduations or games or anything. So we had to deal with this person a lot in real life. And every time it just got worse. Every feeling, it just mounted. And so being able to take him to court was amazing. And that was really the only closure I got to it, and other than, therapy and stuff like that. So that was really closing that book.
I'm really proud of you for, even to go back and be like, no, you come on, you're going to handle this. But
Yeah.
That's the way that we can handle it for right now.
Oh, for sure. And it was like such a motivating factor to be like, I numbed my pain physically and emotionally for more than one reason. It was not just because of the back pain. Those pills made me feel euphoric in those moments where I was having flashbacks of him and I couldn't function. It was numbing everything. And one day it all just hit me like a bag of bricks. Like, he's still controlling you. and you're letting yourself be a victim. And I remember just telling myself, I'm not a victim. Like, I run my life. This is mine. And you're not going to take it from me. And that was what motivated me to get this attorney on his ass and do what I needed to do, because I couldn't even imagine that I gave him that much of me in the first place, let alone the addiction and the flashbacks and the trauma. Like, no, I just had to take back my life.
Wow. So walk us through, you kind of did walk us through, but what were the significant thoughts you were having to even empower you to push forward with your life in general?
I felt like the one thing I could hear running through my brain all the time was why? Like, why me? Why these cards? Why are they being dealt to me? What am I doing wrong? What did I do wrong? And why am I being punished? And when I turned that off, and it took me like 30 days. I mean, I had been in that mode for 20 plus years. It took me about 30 days to retrain my brain to stop thinking like that. And I had to tell myself every single day that I was worthy of much more, and I was going to get exactly what I wanted out of life, and it was 100% on me how to get there. And all I had to do was stop victimizing myself and using victim statements in my head. I don't ask why anymore. I don't care. All I know is it didn't define me. It doesn't bother me one bit, because it's something I don't have to deal with anymore. I don't have to deal with being in this like mindset of like, oh, and now it's this, like, what else? Like, I'm a sex abuse victim. Like, what else? No, 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 fuck that. Um, yeah, I'm not a victim.
I love that. Ladies, I hope you're listening. No more victim mindset. No
No.
more victim mindset. And we heard Tay, it took her 30 days to retrain her brain. So it's
Yes.
absolutely possible if we really take it serious. Tay,
Yes.
I know you are the queen of manifestation. You
Yes.
were that before I even started listening to Abraham Hicks and all those folks
Oh yeah.
about things. So
Yes.
you're my first Abraham Hicks to tell us
I love that.
like
I love
about
that.
manifestation. So if
Yeah.
you could share a little bit how manifestation helped you overcome the trials you've had in life so far.
Oh, for sure. I watched The Secret on Netflix, and I had a little notebook out, and I just started making notes. And it really told me like I needed to retrain my train of thought. And it was going to be 100 times harder to process a positive thought when all I had done was process negative thoughts for 20 plus years. And so I knew it was going to be a challenge, because at the time that I watched this video, this movie, I had 17 cents in my bank account. I couldn't even go get apple juice at the local store. And I remember having a meltdown in the Safeway because I just needed juice and I couldn't do it. And I was like, this is not life. This cannot be my life. There's no way. And so I watched this movie on that day because I had had enough, and I was very suicidal. I was like ready to end it all. And I was like, I was supposed to see this. I had to see this movie, this little documentary. It's so corny. It is so outdated. And I just remember thinking, I don't care. Like, the message is the point. I don't care how old this video is. This is working for these people. I'm going to try it. I have nothing to lose. I have nothing to lose at this point. And it took me about 30 days. I started seeing results. I was in disbelief. I just got goosebumps thinking about it, because I just remember thinking, like, if this is working, then let me try it again. Did it again. And I was like, oh my God, I'm scared, because this is making me feel like the destiny that I'm supposed to have is right within my reach. And that is a scary thought. And then I did it again. And I've done it for everything that I've achieved so far, whether it's my salary, my car, my house, where I'm living, how I'm living. Everything has aligned with how I treated the law of attraction. I completely grabbed it, took it for myself, and I revamped my whole life. And anybody that's in my circle, if they do not think this way and they think with a victim mindset, and I cannot get them out of that state, I cut them off out of love. But I have to protect my energy, because I don't know what could bring me back to that victim mind state, but I don't want to know. So if it's near me, I cut it off like cancer, and I will, like mentor them from a safe distance. And after so many tries, if it's not clicking for them, I just let them know, like, I love you, but you have a lot more to work on than I'm going to be able to help you with. And you've got to look deeper within yourself, because I don't know how to help you. If I'm not reaching you, then we need a professional. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Amen. Cut it off like cancer. I love that.
Yeah.
That's how you stay on top right there.
Yes.
Man. So what words, I mean, you've already shared a whole lot of words that can empower anybody listening, but
Right.
what words would you give exactly to a woman who is still struggling with the abuse she's endured and she's trying to figure out her next move? What would you tell her?
It 100% starts with you, and you are in control of how this is going to play out. And whether that means your life or those charges towards that individual, or however you want to play it, you are in charge. And every day that we sit here and we stew in it, they are winning another day of our life. They don't deserve that. So it's on us to get up and get in front of it and do whatever that might look like. It could be therapy, it could be manifestation, it could be whatever. But you need to look inside yourself, put that victim to the side, and be that victim's counselor and get into a different mode in order to get ahead of it. It's the only way that you're going to get control of your life again, because that person, that abuser, deserves not one more day, not one more second of your pain, of your suffering, and keeping you at stagnant. You're letting them win. We're not letting anybody win.
Amen. Oh my gosh. You're so empowering, Tay, and we really appreciate you coming on here,
Thank you.
sharing your life with us, sharing your wins and the
You.
hard times that you had to endure as a child, and just being this amazing, phenomenal woman who's always, always ready to empower another woman. Since I've met you, that's been the
Yeah.
case. Where can we find you, Tay, on the web?
My TikTok and my Instagram are Tay Rose 222. And my Facebook is more like, I would say, the more down to earth version of me. And that's where I do a lot of mentoring and stuff. And I believe it's just my name, Tay Rose Kaufman, which I can give you that. And then we can put it in the description or however that works.
Okay, so you do accept mentoring clients.
Yes. And it's not anything that I have a title for, but I think just even going back to like the mommy group from 2015, it's just a position that I've adopted. And again, being able to do it virtually via text and audio message, it makes it more easy for other people to just kind of get out of a really bad space in an emergency, whether it's 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning. It's a position I've adopted, but I do not have a title in it at all. But a lot of people know that it's just something that I do, just, to give back.
I love that. So, ladies, if you were moved by this interview and you just were like, I need to get closer to this woman, I don't know where she came from, please reach out to her. All of her credentials and ways to contact her will be in the show notes. Well, Tay, it's been a blessing to have you here. You are a rock star. You are a queen.
Thank you.
And I cannot wait to see you on stages. I know you were telling me this is your first podcast.
Yes.
And it's the first of many. I know she's about to just blow up and help that many more people, because everything we go through is for a reason. So
yes.
I appreciate you sharing this story with us. And until next time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Lean. I hope today's episode left you feeling inspired, empowered, and ready to take on whatever challenges come your way. If this conversation resonated with you, make sure to subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. And don't forget to share it with someone who could use a little extra encouragement. The Lean podcast thrives because of listeners like you. So let's continue to build this community. Drop a comment, leave a review, and let us know what topics you'd love to hear more about. And if you haven't yet, be sure to join our Facebook group, the Ladies Empowerment and Alignment Network, where the conversation and support continues every day. Until next time, keep leaning into growth, empowerment, and alignment. Thanks for being a part of the Lean community.